All right, y'all, we got some news coming out of boxing, and that is former WBC and WBA welterweight champion Keith one-time Thurman is scheduled to fight Brock Jarvis this Wednesday at the Thurman Pavilion in Sydney, Australia. Now, they had a final press conference today, and Keith Thurman was basically saying the dude don't move his head, he's too muscular, he's too slow. Brock Jarvis, who I've never seen none of his fights, but he was talking about, Keith Thurman is old, and he gonna show Keith Thurman. I guess they're not fighting for a belt, and they're going to be fighting at 154 pounds, so it's super welterweight. Now, honestly, I don't know who's going to win this fight, but let me say this about Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman might be one of the biggest what-ifs in boxing history. Now, I pulled up his boxing record according to BoxRec, and the man won. He won the WBA title, right, back in December 2014. He won the WBA interim regular title. Now, I don't know if people know that the WBA created this belt out of nowhere, gave Floyd Mayweather the super champion, but Keith Thurman was the regular champion. However, he went undefeated for a couple of years, and he ended up fighting. He had a classic fight against Sean Porter, but then he ended up fighting Danny Garcia, and that's when he became the WBA super title and WBC title at 147 pounds. So then Earl Spence, who had won the IBF belt, and he went over there to England. He fought Amir Khan's rival, Kell Brook. It was Kell Brook. Broke his eye socket. People was wondering whether or not they was going to fight. And Keith Thurman, prior to that, I remember him doing interviews with 78. And I ain't afraid to let it go. I'm not afraid to lose, dog. Don't duck me, son. Keith Thurman was one of my favorite fighters. So he wins the belt in 2017. So now he's unified. We're thinking that it's going to be a super fight between him and Earl Spence. Keith Thurman, I guess he gets hurt. He comes back, he gets hurt. But Keith Thurman doesn't fight again. He doesn't fight again for 2 years. He gives up the WBC belt, and he gets thrown in circulation. And I believe Sean Porter won the belt, and then Earl Spence beat Sean Porter for the belt in a classic fight as well. But he doesn't fight for 2 years. He goes up against Josito Lopez, and he has a victory. Then he takes another year and a half off. Or excuse me, not another year and a half off. He fought January 6, 2019. Then he fights July 20th, 2019. And he pretty much gives up the WBA belt to Manny Pacquiao. Keith Thurman, who those who don't remember, Keith Thurman got dropped in the first round. And while he did have good moments, Manny Pacquiao ended up beating Keith Thurman and became the WBA champion. Who Manny Pacquiao ended up losing to the Cuban boxer, Ugas. But then after that, right, so Keith Thurman takes another hiatus, and he doesn't fight until February 5th, 2022, and he goes up against Mario Barrios. He wins a unanimous decision, and now we are in February 2025 or March 2025. So 3 years later, he's now coming back. Listen, man, this guy Keith Thurman, man, you could have been an all-time great. Yes, he's a two-time champion, but Keith Thurman could have potentially beat Earl Spence, had a showdown against Terrence Crawford, possibly beat Terrence Crawford, and he could have been the guy who could have been the supreme winner of them all. But he got them belts, he got comfortable, he took years off. I know it's politics behind the scenes, but I don't understand how can a guy go from being unified to barely fighting after that. Like right after that too, immediately. But listen, I'm rooting for Keith. I want to see Keith Thurman come back, possibly win a title at 154, but he's 35, 36 years old, so we don't know. And he don't fight that often, so I know he has a lot of ring rust. Is he still with the PBC? Because he's fighting on this. I never heard of this promotional company, but like I said, you over there fighting in Australia, Keith. Like, come on, Al, man. Like what's going on with the PBC fighters? Keith Thurman should have been someone that everybody remembers, but I'm starting to wonder if Keith Thurman's going to fade away. Like, we're talking about a guy who literally had 2 belts and was undefeated at 154 pounds and was the face of 154 pounds. And then he just stopped boxing. But, we'll see whether or not what he going to do on Wednesday, which, I'm assuming if he loses, this probably will be his last fight. Boxing professionally. But I just want to get my quick thoughts about it. I mean, what do y'all think about Keith Thurman? Do you think that, what do you think caused him to take these huge hiatuses? Do you think that it affected his career and that he possibly could have beat Earl Spence and Terrence Bud Crawford? I believe that he could have gave Spence a run for his money. Terrence Crawford, I believe it's possible as well, because Keith Thurman, he wasn't a small guy. He could have easily been fighting 154 pounds years ago. But yeah, let me know what y'all think.